returning to ground zero. 2 weeks on, the survivors of New York's financial district are trickling back. What they're finding in the ruins is the wreckage of America's longest economic expansion on record. One block from the disaster site, Renee and Joel Koppel are rebuilding. The Koppels own Bathman's Jewellers across from the World Trade Center. Today, they're counting the costs of the disaster and their blessings. They only narrowly escaped.
Somewhere around 8:45, the whole building shook, and I right away screamed, "Oh my God, they bombed the World Trade Center." And Joel said, we're closing. While we were doing that, the second one hit. We all stopped. We watched this on camera. We all stopped for a second, saw what was going on, and then continued and moved a little faster. We were doing it while we cried and shook, and we put everything away. We did the best we could and pretty much secured the place.
So this is from this site, a picture looking across the street of the troops going off to march into the war.
The Bathman building was built just after the Civil War, strong enough, remarkably, to survive the collapse of its 110-storey neighbours. But the financial cost to the Koppels will still be in the tens of thousands.
Well, glass wasn't broken by the implosion. The rest was broken by looters. We're putting the glass back in. We need to do a major cleaning. Inside there needs to be a lot of repairs done. So we're trying to find our papers, find our belongings, and put everything back together.
Here, in front of Bathman's, there's the acrid smell of a war zone, of pulverised buildings and smoking ruins. But the terrorists did more than tear down the steel and glass of the World Trade Center. There's the lives of those who were here. Then there's the terrible blow the terrorists landed on the US financial system. Wall Street is just 3 blocks from here. As Bathman's tries to rise from the ashes, so too does the whole US and world financial system.
Since the disaster, $1 trillion has been wiped off the value of the US markets, a loss not seen since the Great Depression. It's a cruel number that even hardened veterans like analyst Larry Watchel can scarcely believe.
$1 trillion worth of value. $1 trillion has been wiped away in 1 week. Unprecedented.
Decline might again give way to a rally back, and so it goes throughout the day. This will be a volatile day, probably a record volume day.
From his desk at Prudential Securities, 1 mile from the World Trade Center site, Watchel focuses on the short term. As he sees it, it's a confidence game. The terrorists have made sure of that.
But when you walk out now and you head to the subway, you know, you kind of theoretically looking over your shoulder. If there's a loud sound on the subway, you know, you look around. It's changed. Now, time will heal that. But for the moment, everybody is super cautious. And when you come down on Wall Street today, you see Army uniforms. Now, I know that's been the case in Europe. Submachine guns is the way of life. But we aren't used to it down here in New York. And it's been a wrench, a psychological wrench.
65 on the last 10 completes.
That wrench has had a devastating impact.
Somebody over there knows what's going on.
100,000 jobs lost in the airline industry alone, the end of a record-breaking decade of growth.
Someone over there can count!
The United States was already on the brink of a recession. The terrorists pushed it over the precipice.
Prior to the situation, industrial production had begun to turn upward, orders had begun to improve, inventories had begun to work down. So we were fringing, but we were trying to escape a recession. This has ground the American economy to a halt. It will revive again, but it's too late to save the economy. The economy is in recession.
My sense is that this is a big deal. This is a major event, and that we're looking at something a lot more protracted and difficult than we'd like to believe.
Deutsche Bank's chief strategist, Dr. Ed Yardeni, doubts the market realizes how badly the terrorists have wounded the economy.
It may have found its bottom, but I think it could still be here in about 6 months. But my hunch is that investors haven't fully fathomed just how bad of a shock this was to the economy, to consumer spending, to corporate earnings, and we're going to learn that very quickly here.
For traders here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange near ground zero, no amount of soothing forecast from the Bush administration, not even an airline bailout package, can balance the weight of bad news and uncertainty. Company profits are under threat. There's the promise of a protracted war on terrorism, and a sense that the recession that the US might have avoided is now with us. And when pessimism runs deep here, its effects are felt way beyond America.
There's no doubt in my mind that the recession in the United States will drag Europe, Australia, Asian countries down with it. I think the president in some ways is right when he says you're either with us or against us, especially when we're talking about the global economy. Those who've prospered from America's success and prosperity are going to also suffer if the American economy suffers.
What worries us all is the global nature of this thing. When the Asian crisis hit in '98, when the Russian crisis hit, we were the locomotives that lifted everybody up. Now we're in recession. Europe is in recession. Japan is in recession. Latin America is such. So that's a troubling item.
But many American companies are fighting back. Morgan Stanley has moved part of its operation here to a Manhattan warehouse. The brokerage had 3,700 employees at the World Trade Center. 6 are still missing. The rest went to company headquarters in Midtown. 700 traders moved here.
Well, given that we are in unusual circumstances and in temporary situation, it's no doubt it's been very rewarding to see the entire company come together out of such a tragedy, but yet allow it to be business as usual from our clients' perspective.
Morgan Stanley, like the rest of the companies in the financial district, are in uncharted waters. The age of certainty ended 2 weeks ago. Now they're faced with a new war that at every turn could reshape the market.
It doesn't take much imagination anymore after what's happened in downtown Manhattan to imagine some pretty nasty scenarios that, for all the attempts to stop them, we're not going to be able to, in which case consumer confidence will stay weak, consumers will stay at home, they won't spend. So prosecuting this war as successfully and as quickly as possible would be ideal, but let's face it, we don't live in an ideal world anymore.
But down on the street, Larry Watchel is still confident the damage can be repaired.
This was the worst tragedy in history, no doubt about it. But I can remember 25 years ago when New York was supposed to go into bankruptcy, you know, and there was a headline, President Ford was around then, a headline in the New York Daily News, Ford to New York dropped dead, you know, that kind of thing. We're not going to help you out. So we were in dire straits. The real estate business was terrible. Wall Street was floundering. And we came out of that and, you know, and rose to a very, very, very great height. So I think there's a resiliency factor there.
Yankee Stadium, and New Yorkers gather to end their mourning and begin again.
Oh, America, America, God mend thine every flaw and confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty and law. Together we will get through it because we are the United States of America. God bless America.
September 11th has traumatized the world's strongest economy and left it to face new uncertainties. But in New York, they'll rebuild anyway. if for no other reason than to spite the terrorists.
That I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you.
I see it all around us. All the store owners, they're all here. There's been hugs and kisses with people that were normally a more formal relationship. Now it's all hugging and kissing, and we're ecstatic to see each other. I hope the love and the strength that we're all feeling stays for a long time afterwards. And yeah, that's not going to stop us.